Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I love to take this time and thank my guests because I know they're showing up with a couple of things that I personally deem precious. Their time. Nicky, thank you for your time. That commodity is priceless. If people do not know what it is and how to use it, they can squander that. I know many that have. And the other is your precious journey. That journey houses your victory, your pain, all of the things that is you and made you who you are today. And you're here to entrust us with this information. And so I want to thank you for coming here at Threads of Enlightenment. I do appreciate you spending time with us. Thank you so much.
Ken, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Man, I'm excited about this conversation. Nicky, I want you to tell them all the things that you have created because I've had some fun listening to all of your YouTube and all the other things, reading about you, man. So I'm excited about this conversation. Talk to the people, let them know those things that you have given birth so far.
Okay, well, I've written and published a number of books. My best known book is called Finish Line Thinking: How to Think and Win Like a Champion. And I wrote it about the work I did with Olympic gold medal athletes and world record holders and the top performers inside business. Those folks have a different type of mindset. And in that book, we capture how is it that those top level performers think compared to how other people think. That's my first book. Then I wrote a children's book teaching kids about free enterprise. It's called Kathy Capitalist and Johnny Jobmaker. I had little kids at the time. So that's like an illustrated children's book about business and free enterprise. And then I wrote another book called The Thought Leader's Journey. And it was written in the form of a fable. If you're familiar with the work of Robin Sharma and The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, it's kind of written in that similar type of a frame. But it describes the journey of someone who's working in corporate Canada, corporate America, and wants to go and follow their heart, follow their own passion. And it really speaks about all the things they need to learn to get out there. And then I wrote another book called The Power of Connecting: How to Activate Profitable Relationships by Serving Your Network. That was a co-written book. I wrote it with the founder of BNI and Canada, I should say, not the founder of BNI overall. His name's Kai Bjorn. And it really is about how to delve into your network, your warm market, and create those relationships that generate business, because I really believe that your network is your net worth. And a lot of people, a lot of good people, there's millions of dollars available for them in their network if they properly go after it. We can talk about that more a bit in the conversation. The next business book I wrote is called How to Create $1 Million a Year Income: Priceless Guide for Insurance Agents, Sales Professionals, and anyone with a big dream. And I wrote this with another client of mine who makes $1 million a year inside of his field. And we wanted to bring those principles out to the people. I've got a couple podcasts I do, The Thought Leader Revolution, and I've got a podcast I do for men called the Sovereign Man Podcast. That's part of the men's organization that I run as well. And on top of that, I'm father to 2 teenage sons. Both of them are involved in sports. So it's busy.
I actually 5 sons, man. So I know
5 sons, dude. I bow to you.
I know about that type of lifestyle, if you will. I know you had mentioned your network and so forth, and I tell people acres of diamonds, man. You got to know what's around you. Nicky, I want you to go back as to your childhood because we want to take your journey back as to how was your household, how was that family unit, because usually there is where we began to get our first information, if you will, about life and how life is and all of those different things. And from those relationship, you and I kind of formed our own based on the information that was inputted to us. Talk to me as to how was your family unit and how did it affect you as a young man?
So I grew up in Iran, right? I was born in Iran. I'm a Christian from Iran in the Middle East. And my mother and my father were very influenced by modern ideas, Western ideas. My mom went to get a nursing degree in Denmark. My father studied in England to get his business degree. He came from a very poor family, and he totally lifted himself up by the bootstraps. He couldn't afford meals in England. And he eventually had to come back because he couldn't afford to finish university there. So he would eat Bounty chocolate bars. He had one a day. That was his sustenance when he was there.
Wow.
And being an Assyrian Christian in Iran was very hard back then. There's a lot of discrimination. People would just accost him on the street and start fights with him, like try to beat the crap out of him. He got a thick skin pretty quickly, and they stopped messing with him and his family after a while. But that's kind of the story of my dad. And my dad is a larger than life character. God rest his soul. He was an entrepreneur. He also was very much into meditation. He started meditating when he was 18 years old, and he meditated twice a day until he had strokes and so forth, and he couldn't do it anymore. But he was somebody who really went within and was a multimillionaire businessman, and also a bit of a Renaissance man and a spiritual man too. And growing up in Iran, when I was quite young, 11 years old, the Islamic Revolution took place. My father was a far-sighted man, and he said, "This is not going to be a great place for me to raise my family anymore." So he got us out of the country. And I thank God every day for him having the foresight to do that, because we got to grow up in the free West. I know that we're living in a time where it's very fashionable and popular for so many people in the media to go, "Oh my God, the West, so oppressive, so terrible, so racist, so sexist, so whatever." I'm like, are you guys kidding me? This is the most tolerant place on the planet. When I was 11 years old, they threw a Molotov cocktail through my living room window with a note on it that said, "Die, Christian scum." It didn't explode. We kept the note. You know what I mean? But thank God. But, if it had exploded, you and I wouldn't be talking because it landed right next to me. It would have killed me, and it's, that's kind of normal in the world here. When we societally look at our behavior in the past, we actually go, "Oh, we could have done better. We did wrong." And back home, they don't do that. They double down, they triple down, they quadruple down on their behavior. Are you kidding me? We're so lucky to be here. This is what I see first and foremost. I think everybody needs to understand how lucky we are to be here, to live in a free society, to be able to think free thoughts, and to be able to create a way of life, a lifestyle, a business.
Yes.
It's not possible everywhere in the world, and we all need to understand how great it is to have these opportunities where we live, in my opinion. And my father, like I said, he was an entrepreneur, and he uplifted people. Ken, Dad would help people find jobs. He would help people get their start in business. He would lend them money and things like that. And then there were people that were, not doing so good. So he would help them out. He'd buy a guy a car. He'd even buy their family an apartment and even a house. And, in Iran at the time, this was, certainly noteworthy, but there were other folks in our country that did that. I mean, Iranians have a beautiful, generous nature to them. And why would he do that? Well, first of all, he was an Iranian generous man. He was also a Christian. He really believed that, much had been given to him and he needed to give back, as it were. And then he also, he did it because he could. He had the wherewithal, so I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to help other people. And like you and I were talking about before we started recording, there's a lot of people inside of the space that you're in. They're good people. They come from the heart. They want to make a difference. They don't understand business, and the idea of sales terrifies them. Yeah. They think, "Oh my God, I want to be so pushy. I don't want to come across salesy. I don't want to reek of commission breath." If you've ever heard that phrase,
or begging and stuff like that.
Yeah, they don't want to do that. And, the problem with that frame of reference is that you don't get business. You don't get to live a life that you should be living. You don't get to help people you should be helping. And so one of the things that we help those kinds of folks do is we help them reframe all that from, selling and pushiness to serving and advocating on behalf of somebody. Nobody wants to be sold, but everybody wants to be served. And,
exactly.
That's,
people respond to that. They respond to it, and they feel, that energy to give. They want to give. And, but to bring them out of that space, That is why I'm here. Being with this Renaissance man, because that figure that you talked about, your dad, is bigger than life, as you described. How did that affect you? You mentioned that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, but how did it affect you, the being, this young man watching this dad, and your mom, professional, but that heart meditation, all those things you were exposed to? How did that affect you, Nicky, as an individual on your own, seeing this and being surrounded by this?
Well, I really wanted to be like my dad. That was very important to me because I went and I learned how to meditate. My mom got us involved in that as well. And
how old were you when you did that, when you started learning meditation, Nick?
I was 21.
Okay.
I was 21. And I did programs on it. And it was pretty amazing to do that. I went on a journey of reading. Like my dad read a lot. So I started to read a lot. And books that I read, they opened my eyes to new worlds. You know, I would read lots of fiction. I would read a ton of fiction. I'd read books written by a Mormon writer, you know, who wrote about his childhood, and he wrote a series of children's books. I thought they were pretty cool. And I read The Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew when I was pretty young. And then I started to read heroic stories of people in impossible situations like wartime. Those really touched me. And then when I got older, I started to get into some, romantic stories, because, I started getting interested in girls, so I wanted to understand them, and books were the way for me to do all that. And Dad took us to a lot of movies. Like he would take us to see Westerns because they were, stories of good and evil. And my favorite actors growing up were people like John Wayne and Charles Bronson and Clint Eastwood, because those guys were
Eddie Murphy was mine too as well. Those guys, I used to look at all the old ones, man.
Eddie. When I became a younger man, I was, in my early 20s, I got into Eddie Murphy in a big way, and for a while he was my favorite actor. And he kind of disappeared for a good 10 years. He just stopped doing everything, and it was different. But I learned a lot from the movies because the stories, we learn from stories, right? And in business, stories, they say facts tell and stories sell. So it's more important as a business person to tell the stories of the people you've served. I'll give you an example of one of mine, right? So, this young lady I spoke to you about before we got on the show, she was a naturopathic doctor, and she was successful. She made 6 figures a year, but she wasn't as successful as she wanted to be. And, her father was ill. He had glioblastoma, and he wasn't going to survive. And she wanted to make her dad proud, so she came to us and she said, I really need to learn how to do this. And immediately she started working with us. Like she was like, immediately, I'm in, let's go. And within a very short period of time, we realized a big challenge that she had is she wanted to help everybody. So she sounded like everybody else. She didn't stand out. There was no dialed in message. So we got her to dial in her message and dial in her niche market. She started going after professional women in particular and CEOs. And her message was, get your sexy back. You can be as beautiful and sexy in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s as you were in your 20s and 30s. And that message took off. And she tenfolded her income in a 3-year period. Now, I know that sounds like a long time, but honestly, that's one of the things that we say is, it's good to get good results fast. Don't get me wrong. And she did get some good results fast. But if you want to really get great results, that takes time. And the beauty of what happened for this lady is she was trying to be all things to all people, and she stopped trying to be all things to all people. And she started really focusing on people that she wanted to help, that she could feel their pain. And then her business exploded. And then, of course, we also had to really help her charge what she was worth, because a lot of people in this space, they just don't charge enough or charge at all in some cases, right? And here's one thing that we helped her see that, if you don't get what you should get, you won't give what you should give. It's an energetic exchange.
Yes.
Money is an exchange of energy. So when she started charging more, she delivered more. And then the people, they had more skin in the game, so they did the work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And that was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've said this story once before. I had a friend of mine. She was an artist, and she had I think it was a weekend. The weekend was her show was being displayed. And so I had the opportunity, and I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to come and hang out with her before the show happened. And so I saw the prices that she had in these giant canvas, and I'm looking at her. She was selling for like $200 and stuff like that. I'm like, what is wrong with you? So I kind of started looking at her. I said, how much time did it cause you did you paint this particular picture? What did you buy, your supply and all that stuff? And just the basic stuff she was telling me about. And I showed her, and I said, you see what you have done? I said, you didn't value all of your work. So I told her, I said, tell you what, I want you to give me all of your painting. I don't want you to look at the price. Don't look at anything. Just trust me on this and show up at the show. She showed up. I've had everything. It was like 5,000, 10,000, all kinds of crazy prices. And she's looking there. She got there. Nicky, she almost died, at the price because, she's looking at that. She said, no one will buy this stuff. Man, the thing sold out. People are asking her, when is she going to have more? And people started commissioning her for things. And I told her, I said, your value, the time that it takes for you to put that, how was that all your creative energy is priced? There's a price to it. But most people, like you said, in that space, they don't see it. And so we need someone like yourself. Before you got into this space, Nicky, you're 20 something years old. You're learning about meditation and all that stuff. You're reading and expanding your mind within books and learning about the opposite sex and the art of the woman, from reading and all of that. As this young man, making his journey through life, what were some of, the direction that you took there at that age, in, planning your life, and where did it take you? What decision did you make as far as where I want to go with my life, and how did you get there?
Well, I started to work inside corporate Canada. I worked for a big telecom company, and I stayed in that space for 8.5 years, from 1993 to 2001. And I knew for the longest time that this was not the place for me, but I didn't have the courage to get out, and the money was good, especially in the later years. And I had prestige and expense accounts and so forth, but God had a different idea. And God's idea was, you need out of this place. So the last company I worked for went bankrupt, and boom, I went on to a journey where for about a good, a good year and a bit, I was just doing different things, dabbling. And then one day, I'd gotten married in 2002. It was a whirlwind, romance and marriage. One of my wife's friends said, so what do you want to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I think I like to do fitness. She goes, okay, well, you could do this, you could do that. I wasn't in the mood to have the discussion, but the very next day, I got a phone call from someone I knew, a young woman who's a bit overweight. And she called me and she says, hey, so-and-so said that you're a personal trainer. I need one. What are you charging? How soon can we start? So, God not only kicked me out of the last company I worked with, he found me somebody who acted as an agent and got my start by getting me my first client. So, it was wild. So we started working together, and then I got a bunch more clients. And then I at that point, I was introduced by a friend of mine to an Olympic gold medalist here in Canada by the name of Mark McCoy. Now, Mark McCoy in 1992 was the first Canadian in 60 years to win an Olympic gold medal in track and field. And so Mark introduced me to the great Donovan Bailey, who's another Canadian Olympic gold medalist in track and field. We started a business together, and that raised my profile in the space. And, I started to have a brand called the CEO Health Coach. I started to work with a lot of CEOs. And these were folks who were business people, and they were very smart, but very out of shape. They didn't spend a lot of time working out. So I really helped these folks get in shape. That's what I did, and
I want to talk to you about this because I laugh when you said that God had kicked you out. And when the onset of our conversation, I told you, we always live life until, Nicky, and your until was, because God is trying to talk to us. And for years, he was trying to reach you because you felt it even within yourself. And the pieces that keep us in that, vein are the things that we are programmed to believe that we need in order to live this life, and to come out from there is some place that we're not familiar with because we don't have the vision to see how we will be able to sustain ourselves, the security, the money, all of those things that they tell us when they're programming us. This is what life is about. But I can't tell you how many people that I've interviewed are at that level. I've gotten all of the look and go, this is anything that who I am. And so when you said that, I laugh because it is, sometimes it is that abruptness where you have to be moved out. And he would even cause a company, because you're so valuable for the work that he has to be done, that he's your value. He would shut down a company to get you out of that space so that he can bring you on this new journey, for you to get to where you need to, because he sees the need. You don't see it. And so, that was a very funny story. And I love how but I wanted to circle back and bring people's attention because we stay there because of the security and we don't know. But here you are, you're moved on, and God presented your own agent, ASAP, everything, and start moving you forward in a space that he saw. And now he's about to introduce you to the folks that will take you to that next level, learning about the mindsets and stuff like that. I want you to talk to me as you started entertaining the energy of these CEOs and these athletes at that level, because their mindset is different from the common man because they're exposed to a different type of training. I always tell people, you need to be trained in condition response, I call it. You're training yourself so much in a specific thing that when it does happen, Bruce Lee talks about the condition response where you're moving even before you know, because you're conditioned. Talk to me about some of those mindset that the athletes have, because it is a powerful thing. They've learned how to train the mind. Talk to us a little about some of those insights as you were getting with those folks.
Well, thank you for that. There's a lot of, in my book, Finish Line Thinking, I talk about the 13 principles of how to think and win like a champion athlete. Mm-hmm. And I'll share a few of those principles with you. So the first one is, champion athletes, they condition their body. They eat well and they exercise. You know what I mean? These are not folks who eat a lot of bonbons and drink a ton of beer every day, right? These are folks who eat like food like steak and fish and chicken and, salad, carrots. They don't eat a lot of processed garbage. They move their bodies every day. Even after they retire from their sport, they keep moving their bodies, right? And you think about that, that makes sense because, strong body makes a strong mind. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And a strong soul. So that's the first thing. It was really, really hit home and brought home for me. I was already into exercising and eating well, but it just took it to another level for me for that period of my life. And the other thing is they have a different relationship with failure than I did, certainly at the time, and that most people did. So most people look at failure as that means I'm a failure. Oh my God, life is over. So they try to avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
These guys seek failure.
Yeah.
They run to it. They want it because failure is the road to success.
Yes.
You got to learn how to lose if you want to win. Learn how to win. You know, and Mark McCoy he just kept running. He won 15 Canadian National Hurdles Championships. He won the Commonwealth Games gold medal 3 times. He was a 2-time world champion. And of course, he was an Olympic gold medalist as well. And multiple world record holder. In fact, one of his world records still stands. 36 years later, after he said it, it still stands. Now, listen, you know, there's world records that stand a long time, but in track and field, are you kidding me? Those records are gone like that, man. Even the great Usain Bolt, someone's going to break his world record sooner or later, you know? And Mark was known for having the fastest start in human history. The fastest start, like from a start in the first 20 meters, man, he was a bullet, right?
Yeah.
And so he did the 50-meter indoor hurdles, and the world record for that still stands. No one's broken it.
I remember when Sebastian Coe did the mile, and the whole world stopped when he did that 3-minute mile. And then a couple years later, everybody that was like warm-up stuff with guys today. So yeah, in track and field, those things don't last. And so to have something like that is an achievement. That group, because I understand, I know some of the mindset within the athlete. They've pushed the body. They train the mind to push the body beyond its comfort zone. And the failure, as anyone would say, we would push our bodies to that level where we saw where the limit was. And then after we saw what the limit was at that time, then we know where we relocate where we are. And then we start to push beyond that. So failure in the mind of an athlete, if that's for a word, is not really something that we look at as failure. To me, it was always an identifier. I saw where my limits were at this time. And so I knew what it will take to get past that. And so, yeah, we used to hunt those things, Nicky, to get past that, because it just simply identify where we were, our limit, and where we needed to be to push beyond that. That's why that is something that everyone needs to understand and bring it into their own world, their own life. And I tell them all the time, Nick, the dark places are designed to show the greatness within you. Do not run from it. It is designed that way. And once you recognize why it's there, then you can look at your limit, and then you say, okay, what do I need to do to create this new place or world that I want to have? And I use the example of Genesis chapter 1, when God shows up and he says, this earth is a mess. And he looked at it and said, you know what? I have this business plan already set in place. I want to bring a place to put this man in. And I keep telling people, you got to have a business plan. And so he had his business plan. He said, let's make man in our image. And he said, but I need a place. So he comes down. It's a little messy. Darkness is there. And he says, you know what? I need light. And he spoke to it. And when he spoke to it, the words that he released caused the atoms and all the other molecules to begin to formulate what he wanted. That resides within all of us. As you and I move that energy, when we look at our darkness and say, wait a minute. And I tell people, this has to be, Nicky, I tell them, I said, this has to be what I call your statement of faith. You got to believe it more than anything else, because God believed it when he said, let there be light. So you got to believe it more than I do. So you're going to look at me and go, this is what I want. And when you make that statement of faith, Nick, I tell them, all the energy that you have just released in that will go and find the people that you need in your life to help you to get to that space that you just released those words. Those athletes, they know how to get it time and time again, because I hung around with them. Talk to me as to how did that affect you, Nick, being around those?
Well, I got a lot fitter. I got a lot stronger. I got a lot faster. you are who you hang around. I mean, the law of proximity is real, right? And that's one of the things we share with our folks, is that one of the reasons to be a part of the community of heart leaders and thought leaders that we have put together is because you're around people that are going to elevate your game. You hang around 5 people who are learning business and making money, you're going to learn business and you're going to make money. It's that simple, right? It's the truth. So that happened for me, but my own mindset shifted in a big way. I started to think like those folks thought, and I was able to teach it to people. Glasser choice theory says that the best way to learn something is to teach it. Think about that. Yeah, so the best way to learn something is to teach it. So I started to teach these principles to clients and to folks, and that's what made it better for me.
So walk with me here. How did you make that transition as you began to be affected by the proximity of being around these folks and their energy? And as it began to change you, how did you make that move from there? Did you see it? How did you see it? And what steps did you take to bring it into existence when you say, okay, I need to become a teacher? What was that? How did that thought came about, Nicky, and how did you begin to formulate it?
Well, the thought came about originally when I got into the field of being a personal trainer and I got some clients. But what really hit me was that when I learned something really good that works well for me, I want to tell everybody. You know what I mean? Like, this works. You got to do this, right? and so for me, that was what became really, really important. Wanting to have other people get it made it more real for me. When you give, you get so much more than the person you're giving to. It's just unbelievable that so few people understand this. But inside of this space, if you're giving your heart, you're giving your soul, you're giving your knowledge to somebody, that person is going to benefit a millionfold. And I'll tell you another story. There was a young woman who came to us, and she had been the country director for a major personal development company, global company, right? This company had been around since the late 60s. So she ran Canada. She brought someone in to help her out, and they ended up not seeing eye to eye, so she ended up leaving. And when she left, she floundered. She a year and a half just was trying to figure it out. So she got introduced to us and started working with us. And we helped her see that her superpower lay in her giving. And she still wanted to give. She had so much to give. So she started to work with CEOs because many of them were lonely at the top. And she started to do some emotional resiliency coaching for them. In her first month, she got $10,000 in business. In her second month, she got $12,000. In her third month, she got $18,000. In her fourth month, she crushed it. She got $62,200 in business. It was unbelievably fantastic. And then she was just busy and giving from her heart. It was just wonderful. And all these people's lives were being affected. The organizations were being affected. And she lives in Ottawa, Ontario. And I live in Toronto. It's a 5-hour drive. I have, like I said to you, 2 sons, and one of them was 12 at the time. He's 16 now. And he plays soccer, and he had a tournament in Ottawa. So we drove to Ottawa to play in the tournament. And I called her because she had a son, my son's age. I said, hey, would you like to meet with my son, with your son? She said, yes, I would. That'd be nice. So we all met. We had a great lunch for about an hour, hour and a half. And then we were on our way out of the city. So we headed out. A few weeks later, we had one of our quarterly branded thought leader immersion workshops where we teach heart-driven people how to, do what they do in a more business-like fashion, make more money at it, all that good stuff, right? So in a certain part of the event, we do our enrollment opportunity to enroll people into our 4-year mastermind and educational program. And the way I do it is I ask some of our existing members to speak. And so I said, would anyone like to share? their experience. So she said, I would. She bounded on stage and proceeded to cry, just sob and bawl before she could say a word. And like any red-blooded male faced with a crying female, I proceeded to panic, And I just like, what's wrong? In my head, I'm standing there calm. What's wrong? Why is she crying? Oh my God, what did I do? That's what I want. What did I do?
Yeah.
And then she looked back at me. She says, Nicky, you didn't know this, but when you and your little son came to meet me and my little son asked me, Mommy, who are we going to meet today? And she said, oh, we're going to meet Nicky Billou and his son. And he looked at her and he said, oh, are we going to meet the man who saved our family? Wow. And she just looked at me and I started to cry. And I hugged her and she hugged me. And, in between her sobs, she said, you didn't know this, but I hadn't worked for 18 months. We hadn't had any money coming in. I was about to lose our home, foreclosing on our house. And my husband and I were fighting and, family was at risk of breaking apart. You literally helped save our family.
Wow.
And, for me, this taught me a valuable lesson. I have no idea what people are dealing with. I have no idea what kind of struggles they're going through. And I ask God every day, God, give me an opportunity to serve someone like I serve this person on your behalf.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients, people inside the space, tell you, Ken, there's someone like that in your world. And ask God for the opportunity to be of service to them. Because if you raise your frequency and your energy vibration, that's what you're going to do. One of my mentors, he taught me something very valuable. He said, inside business, people think it's all a numbers game. It's not a numbers game. It's a people game. And to become successful, 80% of your success in business is based on your frequency and energy vibration. 80%. And that all comes from how much you care about people.
Yeah. So
80% of your success in business is a function of caring about people and letting that bubble up in your being. 10% is knowing what to do and all that good stuff, which we teach people very effectively. And 10% is execution. Yeah. But 80% is this. So if you're a good, caring person, you have 80% of your success figured out already.
Yeah.
You just got to keep that up there. That's what you got to do. And that's what we teach people to do. And then you got to obviously know what to do and execute it well. So that's the moral of my story.
Yeah, it's a powerful story, man. It houses much wisdom and knowledge in there. I always, living from that space, Nicky, as we mentioned earlier on the onset, purpose of the journey is to bring us to that space, right where you were talking about. In that space is where you're living from and out of. And I tell all the folks that you need to get there. It's a marvelous place. What houses there is joy. What houses there is power. What houses there is humility. What houses there is wisdom. It is all of these things that are housed there, waiting there for you to experience. And when you get there, it is a part of your daily routine because it keeps you humble. You recognize where you are and you know that you are a servant foremost. And as a heart of a servant, that's your prayer. And I do the same. I pray to be used, to serve, to be a servant to someone. And when you open yourself to that level of living a life, everything is different. As I mentioned to you, the conversation becomes different. You don't know, but those words are different. When someone hears it, it is bringing life. There's a scripture that talks about kind words is a well to the heart, brings life to the heart of the hearer, and these things. And so in that space of servanthood, it is absolute power. One of my favorite story or images that I find it hard to even put into my being to get a handle of. Because I grew up in the church as well, Nicky, and the fact that Jesus washed his disciples' foot freaks me out in the sense that what a powerful imagery to have in one's life. And I think that should be all of our goal, to get to that place of humbleness and a humble being, to be able to serve to that level that this God was able to wash the creation foot is just absolutely mind-boggling. And here you are living in a space where you are able to serve. Talk to us, and I try to tell people, get there as quickly as you can. I can't explain by words. Your being needs to experience this. It's hard to explain. As you said, you try, but look what an impact, Nicky. Was a family unit was saved from her words, the son's word. Now, who knows what that family unit, what type of effect they will have on this earth. And so you and I are in a great space. And that's why I say that you are here for a purpose, Nicky. Those that are listening to us, I implore you, get his books, bring them to you, buy them, and offer them to friends and family so that you can move them through. Those that need to get in touch with him, get in touch, because I know he'll make himself available because he is a servant. Purchase the book, get into his master class, get into his space and change your life. Those are that are a part of my industry, entrepreneurship. Get in touch with him because he will be able to help you to make the adjustment in your mind. Switching and changing your perspective will change your future. And here is someone that is offering this to us because it is his gift, it is his love, it is his passion, and he wants to see you get past that. Nicky, talk to him as to some of you mentioned a couple of stories. I want to pull another one out of you because those stories houses so much information. Jesus gave parables because when he told them, it's for those right brain thinkers, the left brain thinkers, all of them were able to get the fullness of the wisdom within those things. Pull out another one, Nicky, and tell the people and the joy that you receive as a result of that when, quote unquote, the light bulb came on in their life when they saw it and they moved through their situation.
All right, I will. So there was a young man that was in the wellness field. This man was a personal trainer, and he had tough time of it. Okay. Mm-hmm. He had 7 clients. His business was not doing well. He needed to borrow money from his parents to pay his rent. Okay. I don't think he even made $1,500 a month. It was that rough. And he came to us because he'd been told that we help people like him, and we started to work with him. And the first question I asked him was, okay, so who's your target market? Who do you work with? Well, I work with anybody. Anybody. Oh, yeah. If they can pay up, I'll work with them. He didn't charge very much, and he would work with anybody. So he didn't have many clients because that's not really a great strategy, right? It just doesn't work. So I said, look, you need to narrow your niche. You need to work with a particular group for a particular reason, particular set of problems. He goes, okay. So his dad was a doctor. He says, I'll work with doctors. All right. And he did it because his dad was a doctor and he thought doctors had money. And of course, that wasn't very compelling to doctors. So not a lot of them signed up with him. He got a couple, but, and I said, this isn't working, man. He was okay. I got it. I work with cardiologists. That's even narrower, right? Cardiologists. I'm like, all right. Okay, you're working with cardiologists. All right, great. Well, the cardiologist wasn't that compelling to work with him either. I mean, he just picked the group and thought they had money, and maybe he got 1 or 2 again, but no great shakes. Then he met a man who was a Afro-Cuban man who moved to Canada and had been a Paralympian medalist. I think he even won a Paralympic gold medal, but he had a missing leg, right? When a childhood accident, right? And this dude was in shape, still is, right? 57 years old now. He's still a badass in shape, in any event, he started working with this guy. He trained him for a while, and he loved training this guy. He said, I love training this guy. And I said, why? And, I thought to myself, maybe it's because the guy's really, motivated and focused. So he said, it's because the guy's really motivated and focused. I'm like, okay, great. And then I thought, okay, why else? And I was thinking to myself, well, maybe it's because the guy really appreciated what he was doing. And he said, the guy really appreciates what I'm doing for him. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I want to work with people with missing limbs, he said. I'm like, okay. So Ken, he signed up 400 clients in 6 weeks. 400 clients. Couldn't do one-on-one anymore, obviously. Mm-hmm. He had to create on the fly some sort of group package and program. And like his income over tenfolded. You know what I mean? Like over tenfolded in 6 weeks. Now, you got to count the 6 to 8 months where he really wasn't doing anything with all this other crap he tried that didn't work. But why was he successful? Well, nobody was going after people with missing limbs as workout clients. Nobody. So he had a blue ocean, right? A blue ocean just available to him. And then secondly, his message really hit home. So he wasn't being all things to all people anymore. Yeah. He was being para-tough. He wrote a book by that name. And I put myself in the shoes of someone with a missing limb because, I don't have that experience. I have other experience. I have a full able-bodied experience. And nobody was going after these guys. And his message was, you can work out, you can be strong, and I'll make you that way. And obviously, this not only made sense from a, physical point of view, they wanted to be strong, but emotionally, the message was, you're just as good and capable as anybody else. Don't tell yourself any different, and be around people who tell you you are just as good or just as powerful, just as valuable, and that message must have sunk in deep, and so he created a fantastic business. So the moral of the story is, well, obviously don't keep doing things alone, because on your own, you're not going to figure this out. You need to be around some mentors and folks that can help you figure this out. But also, be open to God's deeper message on who you're supposed to help coming to you, because that's what happened here for this young man. And that's what allowed him to build a beautiful, beautiful business.
That is awesome. That is, I keep telling people, the journey is to find your gift, find what it is that you excel at. You may not think that you do, but you have it. It's there within you, I believe. Every one of us came onto this planet with it. It houses within us. It takes someone like yourself that is trained in the questions to ask to unearth in some of us. You've been there. Because we are doing the work, we're not focusing, we don't understand, or we don't know the questions that needs to be asked. But someone like yourself who's been surrounded with the mindset, who's been surrounded with folks who has the gift of that, able to ask those questions. Why? Because you have gone through those things and the question that you ask, and you know what to ask them to bring out the outcome that you need. Again, those that are listening, I want you guys to get in touch with Nicky. I'm going to provide all that information. He has a podcast. You need to drink everything up. I actually, before this interview, I was listening to everything I can get, and I will continue to listen because I'm drinking from him, his energy, his wisdom, and I am gaining much insight as we continue our talk. Nick, I want to thank you for coming to this place and presenting to us your story, your journey. It was a beautiful one, and I'm excited about it. And I cannot wait for the folks to get into your space so that you can take them to that next level that they need to get in order to be effective and change this world, man.
Ken, honestly, brother, this was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for having me on the show, man. God bless you, bro.
Oh, thank you, man.